gunpowder, your musket powder, your gunpowder, your musket ball, and your wadding. And lastly, the lock, the firing mechanism for your musket. Now the lock itself consists of a few different parts. One of those parts, this strangely shaped piece of iron, this is the dog or the cock of a lock. It looks like a chicken about to cluck, and in the jaws of the cock is a sharpened stone called a flint. Facing it is this L-shaped piece of iron, faced with steel. Now right now we are all in the half-cock position, meaning we are in what we call if we pull the trigger, the cock will come screaming, so we're scraping the steel up there, we're creating a shower of sparks.
Yeah, right. Now, you know what I've been doing? I'm working doing the trailer.
Now, more, of course, below that on the log, there's a little dish in the pan, of fighting powder. Next to that, the little vent hole, which that gunpowder burning in the vent go through, reaching the powder at the bottom of the barrel, creating light. Inside of that are some loose musket balls, some linen from an old waistcoat, a knife. I've also got a powder horn on my right side with some different measures on it. So we're walking around, there's the deer, time to load my musket, time to load my fowling piece, reach around and get the powder horn. Measure out the right amount of powder for that's going to go into the pan of my musket. Close the hammer, pass the bounce. Get that powder horn again. Use the bigger measure this time. Throw that powder down the barrel. Grab some of that linen from an old waistcoat. Take that knife, cut it off. Make a little square, place it on the barrel, press it down with my thumb. Reach in, get that musket. And most likely I will not have an iron rammer. Instead I will have a wood rammer. And on a day like today, there's a chance that wood rammer could swell. It might have a hard time being pulled out of the barrel. With a wood rammer, I'm going to have to be delicate. So it might be great going down the barrel, so be gentle with it. All right, ram the cartridge, ram the musket ball home. Return the rammer, go up to the shoulder. Take aim at my quarry and fire. All right, that's all well and good for hunting deer. What's the problem with that out on the battlefield?
Rain.
Well, not the rain necessarily, but what's the problem with moving at that pace on the battlefield? It's slow. Deer don't fire back, but you know who does? British soldiers. So instead, these soldiers will be equipped with cartridge pouches. What you see on our right side, inside this cartridge pouch, you will see a drilled wooden block. Inside that wooden block, you have these paper cartridges. Inside these cartridges, pre-measured, the specific amount of gunpowder. A musket ball that will fit down the barrel of the gun. And the paper itself acting as wadding. Everything we need to load and fire our gun as quickly as possible. Now on our left side, of course, we have got bayonets. After firing upon the enemy, hopefully doing some damage, of course, we'll fix bayonets. Hopefully, present! Soldiers will level their muskets in the direction of the enemy, taking careful aim upon the target. Just because we are saying present doesn't mean that they are not taking aim. These soldiers will aim at a target. And then the final command, fire! 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 Well-trained soldiers get a round off every 15 to 20 seconds, and this is what they're going to try to do now. This is what would have happened on the very banks of the Assunpink Creek, January 2nd, 1777. Soldiers all along the street firing at British Russian soldiers trying to ford this creek in one of the most harrowing moments of the American Revolution. Hey, ready! Present! Fire! Fire! These soldiers saw more battles, they became better and better at them. Now I ask all of you, does anyone have need to step off and clear your muskets? Now I ask all of you, if you have any interest in talking to these soldiers, please come up and ask any of us any questions that you might have. And please stick around, of course, for the reading of American Crisis and for the Firewalk. Thank you for coming out and supporting the great city of Trenton.
To the left of base.
it basically explains why the older society must disappear. At least that's one way to read it. Especially the language that all men are created equal. Everyone is endowed with liberty. Liberty isn't a structure, isn't something that comes out of the structures of government. It isn't created by government, which is the older British argument. Rather, it is something that you were born with. It is something that you have the right to defend if it's being affronted and destroyed by that government. You can reform it until it needs fixing. And that is a profoundly radical thing to argue in the 18th century. But 1776 was also a very bad year for the Continental Army and for the rebel cause generally. It started off well. They had a large army at the beginning of the year of 25,000 soldiers, and then they were met at New York in June of 1776 with a British army of 37,000 soldiers, and the greatest invasion fleet ever amassed went home. All of the enlistments within the Continental Army were for short terms, and on the 1st of December, all those who signed up for a 9-month enlistment found their enlistments expired, and after a year of awful privations and defeats, decided they were done with that and went home. By the end of the month, the rest of the army was going to dissolve if nothing changed. And in the middle of that month, Thomas Paine published this, The American Crisis, Volume 1, and that title is extremely apt for what that moment was. Now, in the publication of this, he was more or less able to encourage an incredible turnout into groups like the Philadelphia Associators, who had to begin to draw into a much lower social order than they would have previously. Reducing the revolution. No longer when the enemy directs his force against a particular object. Under arms and sent expressly with excellency George Washington to the town of Hackensack. This is by the way of the ferry 6 miles. Our first object was to secure the bridge over the Hackensack, which laid up the river between the enemy and us, about 6 miles from us and 3 from them. General Washington arrived in about 3/4 of an hour and marched at the head of the troops towards the bridge, which place I expected to shoot a rush for. However, they did not choose to dispute it with us, and the greatest part of our troops went over the bridge, the rest over the ferry, some which passed at a mill on a small creek between the bridge and the ferry, and made their way through some marshy grounds up to the town of Hackensack, and there passed the river.